I discovered Noam Chomsky by picking up a couple of DVDs at a video store in New York a few years ago. Manufactured Consent and A Rebel Without a Pause. I remember this sequence where a few kids from a school radio station are interviewing Professor Chomsky at their little station. Noam was giving them his full attention, as he does to everyone who requests it. And what attracted me the most to him, he has this really strong message about how everybody should share creativity and how each one, through creativity, not necessarily artistic creativity, but creativity meaning using their brain at an enjoyable level, should reach their potential and at the same time making the society a better place. So that was something that really spoke to me, especially in the concept of having developed these home movie factories in which we give people, anyone a camera and some movie set, and so they can shoot anything they want and then watch it. I had this really strong feeling about democratization of the process of filming. So I read some books he did on he had this conference that was starting from Bertrand Russell theories, and then he would develop into his own theories. And so that was a lot about creativity. So that was something that really turned me to him, and that was a cross between his political views and my views on democracy in creativity. I mean, it was several movies were existing already about his activism, like Manufactured Consent or Rebel Without a Pause, and they were really engaging and great. So I thought I could do a different job if I was taking his scientific work. Obviously, his specialization is in linguistics, but what he did to linguistics is bring it to the biological and really scientific place. As before him, linguistics was more about just studying language in every country and not trying to figure out how it came to be. So this part of linguistics really speaks to me. It was more about meeting with him several times. He saw that I was receptive and a good listener. As well, his secretary liked my movies, so it's a good introduction because he doesn't have many people around him. So she probably told him, "Oh, you should work with this guy or whatever," and he's very accessible.
Because when you make a lot of movies, you seem to be making movies all the time. How do you have the time to read Descartes and things?
To read what?
To read Descartes in your
Descartes?
Descartes.
Oh yes. Well, it's actually very short, Descartes. Now I have time like everyone. I don't read so much, and sometimes like when I was doing the animation, I would play book on tape. Books on tape. So that's a great way to catch up with my culture. But I like to read scientific work more than narrative or novel and stories, because it sort of take my mind away when people talk about the size of the stars or the size of the universe and the neutron planet, neutron star. All that is like make my mind boil. So I read quite a good amount of scientific work. I wanted to know if you have any thinking of the mechanism of inspiration.
It's a mystery. It's something common to humans. You see it in young children, you see it in scientists, you see it in carpenters trying to solve a complex problem of how to build a house. But it's just something that happens.
Well, sometimes I was concerned I would have a lack of help from outside to make me finish it. And I was explaining in the film that showing it to him the finished film was one of my motivation, and the idea that I had to finish it because he invested some of his time and I invested so much time, and then it was an expectation to see the film finished. So that really pushed me even when I was busy preparing my next movie to finish it. But as for during the Green Hornet, it was really a relief time, like a holiday. Because I had the total freedom to animate the Noam's voice. He enjoyed it, and he was when he said I was a good listener, and when he saw the first half, for instance, that was out of just in his office on my computer, he said, "Yeah, I agree with it." So it means that he agrees with himself. But in the case of just watching the animation, he felt it was accurate, so it was good for me. Initially, I wanted to call it just an animated conversation with Noam Chomsky, playing on word with the word animated. No, an animated conversation with Noam Chomsky, playing on word animated, like we were arguing on animation. And then we had this conversation about this sentence that is very trivial. It doesn't really have a meaning in itself. And in fact, is the man who stole happy. In fact, the first sentence that I brought to him as an example was the man who is in the kitchen is tall, and he drifted from this adjective to happy, and then I thought it was I don't think he had much meaning, and if I would go to him and say, "Oh, you switched to happy because we talked about happiness and that was still up on your mind," he would say, "No, it's just a pure coincidence," because it's really down to earth. But I felt it was intriguing, and as well I'm sort of proud I took the time to take one sentence and really explain this one of the simple rules of generative grammar. I mean, it's something I was hoping I could reach. I knew it was not so easy to bring into his personal life, because it doesn't. It's not like he's guarded and secretive. It doesn't feel his life is extraordinary enough in his private life, so he has not much to say about it. But I felt that for people to absorb all what he has to say, that was pretty dense, they would like to have insight into him as just a human being. And of course, this relationship is crucial in his life. They stood together for, I don't know, 60, 70 years. It's just incredible. And the fact is that right from the beginning, he talked about his wife. When we start the second subject we bring about language acquisition, he says immediately, actually my wife did a lot of work on that, and he keeps talking about her, and I felt he was trying to bring her to life, at least with my feeling, it's what I felt. So she was very present in his mind. I don't think about a specific audience. I was aware that some people with probably a small amount of people would go to see it because they know my work, and a much bigger amount will go to see because they know about Noam Chomsky and they have this question about him and this fascination. So I thought of that, and then I thought a bit of the audience, especially when I was bringing in his personal life, but most of the time I was just trying to illustrate, to find ways to make the thing, to give a sense to my drawings, to drift from abstract representation, drawings, to more illustrative. So that was my preoccupation. Basically, half of the conversation was kept. And I started to animate little glimpses because I already had idea right from the interview. Like the first shot I did was willow trees. The willow tree, and it grows and it gets cut and it grows back. And then we started in parallel to edit the voice, so we make it 1 hour and a half because I didn't want to animate randomly. And then I had several parts that were already done, and then I find transition and so on. It was very organic. I didn't think of the whole arc of the story before I started to animate. I mean, halfway through, we had to find the overall shape of the interview and how we would place the different parts. But at this time, maybe a third of the movie was animated. Do you mind if I ask you about your feeling when your wife passed away?
I'd just soon not talk about that.
It's different.
I can't get over it. You know?
Yeah, no, sure.
Yeah.
Sorry. So sorry.
I gave you my home. I gave you my hope. The walls.
So it seems that you had the perfect relationship from the outside point of view.
It wasn't, nothing's perfect, but
Yeah.
it was very intimate. Yeah.
I think a lot of human beings spend a lot of their life trying to solve problems of relationship or find a relationship, and
We pretty much solved it when we were children. We were children when we got married.
Yeah.
Carol was 19, I was 20.
In my kitchen, soup is on. Lover, lover, come on over.
well, he would correct me very sharply if I use a word that was not fitting what the subject was. If I use instinctive where it's not the instinct, because what's instinctive is what we're born with, that's genetically transmitted, that's what the instinct is. And sometimes you say a lot of in everyday language, we say, oh, I did that instinctively, which is not true, because it's more intuitively. I learned to replace this word and use it in the appropriate context. So right there he would correct me to the precise word. And like when I said he was skeptical about evolution. I mean, he was skeptical about evolution in language, but he cut me right there because he didn't want people to think he's let's say a creationist or he doesn't believe in evolution. So it was sometimes a bit embarrassing because I felt like he really, in the confusion, he thought I had said something really naive, but I was okay with that. So I was really, this was the layer that was really about the media, because it was about hearing, making my point as clear as possible with all the difficulties. Other than that, the other part is trying to make an animation that reflects without demonstrating his concept. Well, there is the time I watched movie before I made any of them. And I like them because it's a strong distraction, and it's still evolving as it's been around for more than 100 years. So that's interesting, and you can watch a movie and then talk about it, and then it takes you away, and then there is magical moment where you feel really you are sort of in a dream state. And I dream a lot, and I am very curious about my dream. And it's not that I try to explain them. Sometimes they have obvious reason why I dream this subject or this one. So movies are very close to the principle of dreaming, which interests me a lot. And since I make movies, I like to make them, of course. It's painful a lot of time, but sometimes there is a nice moment in the making.
Do you ever write about your dreams when you have them?
Yes. And when I wake up, I write a sentence or two or a little paragraph. And sometimes I dream since I became a director, I direct my dream. I do a lot of lucid dream. So I put myself in a situation that would lead to a big drama, and I interact with the dream. Like a dream last night or the night before was I was reading a paper on the image on the paper, like a newspaper, was being animated. And I was reading that, watching that, and I was telling my brother or somebody, it's funny, we are really, I always thought of this system that you could see moving images on a piece of paper, and now we are doing it. It's like every day, so I thought we were in reality, but I acknowledge that I had dreamed about it before. I discovered Noam Chomsky by picking up a couple of DVDs at a video store in New York a few years ago. Manufacture Consent and A Rebel Without a Pause. I remember this sequence where a few kids from a school radio station are interviewing Professor Chomsky at their little station. Noam was giving them his full attention, as he does to everyone who requests it. Well, it's how not to put you on the spot, but journalists sometimes tend to compress an explanation into a nice sentence. What I probably have said was, I was glad to meet somebody like Chomsky and talk with him about something he invented. And as a comparison, I said once I went to see a concert of James Brown, and I was amazed because I would see the guy performing a music that he invented. So it's not like somebody who's playing funk music now, but like now, I never said that Chomsky is the James Brown.
I was the one. But you say in the film that the filmmakers as well compress information and alter meanings.
But like I do that in an animation, so I'm not saying that's what was said. I said that's my interpretation. But if you said that and you take two sentences and you put it in one sentence, that's not what I said. But I mean that's the thing with Chomsky. He's still alive, but he belongs to the modern science philosopher. Which really there is not so many guys alive, and you have really strong biologists that have great story to tell and great insight on how life works. And for instance, there is this Vietnamese, American, and French astrophysicist, and it's Trinh Truong, and say his name, you have to look it up. And he did a book called Secret Melody, and he explained the history of the universe from the beginning to the present time and the future. And I really love that, and I started to talk to him. And maybe one day I will do an animation of all his insight of the universe. So that's something that really interests me. Well, I was more aware of the fact that the brain absorb the cut on the fragmented information, and that it was maybe an explanation why we can see a movie which is just a collection of short moments and perceive it as a moment of life as a whole. So, and as well, on the other hand, I use animation or film technique to illustrate on the, I think, quite complex level, or at least accurate, this concept he has on how we perceive the outside world from our perspective, and how when you see an object we associate, we have a complex relationship with it, we associate the history of the object more than the shape of the object. And that was, I thought that filmmaking was capable of illustrating this, especially animation, to illustrate this concept. It's very hard to film. Now I'm just adding stuff that is not even from Noam. But I've put a loop under it, so it's not so much work. The truth is that I'm frantically going through this animation, and it has been 2 years since I started, so Noam is now 84. I neglect my appearance, and I should be focusing on the film I'm preparing, L'écume du jour, but I won't stop. I must finish the film and show it to Noam before he's dead. My room is a pile of animation paper, my mother is at the hospital, but I only care about Noam's health, only to show him the finished film. This is childish and unscientific, but true.